So out here we have, I have created a class called city with name, two objects, c1.name is A, c2.name is B, and if I write system.out.println c1.name and c2.name, it will print names of c1 and c2. This is pretty much similar to what we did yesterday. Okay, in the memory what will happen? It will create two objects, and C1 will be pointing to this, C2 will be pointing to this. Both the objects will have the property name. The name for C2 will be B and the name for C1 will be A. Okay, so this is the concept of objects. That is, you can create 10 objects of the class and have a different value of a variable. Okay, for example, in city class, what's the variable? Name variable. Okay, I can have different values of the name variable for every object. Fine. Now, just a minute. Yeah. Now, in my city class, suppose there had been multiple things. For example, I am writing string name, string country, the country in which the city is present, int population. So these are the various properties of the city. Fine. And if I go back to my test.java, when I am initializing an object, suppose while initializing C1, I'll have to write C1.name is A, C1.country is equal to country1, suppose, C1.population is equal to some number, right? Similarly for C2, C2.name is B, C2.country is say country2, and C2.population is some number. Now this is a very tiresome process. Suppose the city has got 100 properties. Will you initialize every property for every object like this? I just made 3 properties. What if it has 5 properties? Or what if I have to create 10 objects of this class? Will I have to initialize every object like this? Okay. To understand that concept, to get rid of this, you should be knowing the concept of constructors in Java language. Okay, every class has a constructor which helps to initialize the objects of that class. Okay, what is a constructor? If I go to my city class, right, I'll write over here public city. This is very important because these constructors and all, they'll be used in the framework. When we start with the page object model and the page factory design in Selenium, okay, we'll be using constructors over there. So just listen to this carefully, right? The name of the constructor is same as the name of the class. Please remember this, okay? And this is a constructor. Suppose inside the constructor I type system.out.println hello, right? And when will this constructor be called? Fine. This constructor will be called once you make the object of the city class. Whenever you are writing new city, okay? Whenever you write new city, this constructor will automatically be called. So if I run this program, this prints the city names as A and B, but it's also printing hello 2 times because I am writing new city 2 times. So the constructor is called as many times as you create the object. If I am writing new city again here, I am creating an object without any reference. Okay, I created 3 times. Now hello will be printed 5 times because I have created 5 objects. These are the 3. This is this and this one. Right? So if you run this, this prints 5 hello 5 times. So the constructor is called when you actually create the object of the class. Fine. And inside the constructor you can initialize the objects as well. So this constructor is known as the default constructor. And another constructor is there, which is, you can say it's an overloaded constructor. It is again the same. If you write public, you write the name of the class city, okay, but you describe 3 properties into it: string name n, comma string country C, comma int population P. So how will this overloaded constructor help us? Now what we will do is, when we create the object, we will write like this: city C3 equals to new city. You give the name of the city on the fly out here. You give the country and you give the population. So what's the difference? Out here I am calling the default constructor, then I am initializing the object. But out here I am calling the overloaded constructor, directly passing it the country name, the city, country name and the population, which is actually going out here in string n, C and P. And out here I can write name equals to n, country equals to C, population equals to P. So when you write this name is n, country C and population is P, what happens is that this global variable name, okay, is assigned this variable n, the country is assigned this variable C and the population is assigned this variable P. Fine. So if you actually go to your test.java and run this, this object will be initialized. Similarly, you can initialize other objects as well on the fly. You can write C3, C4, C5, okay, give them some other country names, city names, A, B, C, D, E, country, 4, 5 and some other populations. So this way I am creating the object and simultaneously I am initializing the objects as well. So if I write system.out.println c3.country, c4.country and c5.country. If I write like this and run this program, this will simply print country 345. Okay, so this is like something which is you can say it's like it helps you to initialize the objects as well as it helps you to assign the values to the objects as well. Okay, right? Now this thing we'll be using when we'll be studying the page object model and the page factory design. These kinds of constructors and all we'll use over there. Okay. Now we'll see. I'll create a new class. Or hold on. In my city class only, right? I'll now create a function. I'll create functions, and I hope you guys have a little bit of idea what functions are, what methods are, right? So I'll create a function. For example, I'll create a function public void print city name, and I'll write system.out.println name. Okay, so this function is printing the name of this. Now if you go to your test.java, so what is the structure right now? Let's talk about C3, C4 and C5. Okay, let's talk about C3, C4 and C5. If you look at the structure, then there are three objects in the memory: C3, C4 and C5. Right? Both have got three variables: name, city, name of the city, country name, and population. Name, city, population. Name, country, population. Name, country, and population. And C3 is pointing towards this, C4, C5. Now I made a function called print city name. Okay, that function will also be part of every object. Print city name. Okay, when C3 will call its print city name function, it will print the name for C3. When C4 will call it, it will print the name for C4. So what's the thing? It's something like this. That is system, or you write simply C3 dot print city name, C4 dot print city name, and C5 dot print city name. So the same function is being called by three different objects, right? But if you look at your city class, then the print city function, okay, it's printing the name. So whichever object is calling it, it will print the name of that particular object. Okay, so the same function but being called with different references will print different outputs. So if you run, I'll just print system.out.println. I'll just make a demarcation boundary and run this. So this prints C, D and E. That's good, right? C, D and E. C3, C4 and C5. Right? Now how this thing is used in Selenium, okay, let's check that out. Suppose I now, yesterday I told you, right, how to download the Selenium jar files and all into your machine. I told you, right? So you can download the Selenium jar files in your machine and you can include it in the project. I'm just going to include the Selenium jar files in my project the way I did yesterday. I'll go to the properties. I'll go to Java build path, libraries, add external jars. Please remember this process. You have to do it in every project. Go to the jar files of Selenium. Yesterday I included these two jar files. After that you can go to the libs directory, include the rest of the jar files, and Selenium is configured in your project. Selenium is never installed. Okay, under reference library section you will see the jar files of Selenium. Fine. Now we are going to use some existing classes from Selenium and we'll be working on the same concept. Now city.java, I had created this file, and in test.java I had used the features of this file. Okay. Now similarly, what I am going to do is I am going to create a class called sample
Hi sir.
Yeah, I got disconnected. So I'll again create a new class called sample Selenium Test. Fine. So what we'll be using is, we'll be using the existing classes of Selenium and we'll be creating the objects of those classes. Okay. So in Selenium, that's what you do majorly. You create the class objects of existing classes. Okay. Like city was a class and I was creating the object of the city class in test class. Okay. For example, yesterday I told you, right, there's a class called Firefox driver, which helps you to do the testing on Firefox. There is a class called Internet Explorer driver, which helps you to do the testing on IE. There is a class called Chrome driver for Chrome. Safari driver has also come up in WebDriver. It's a little bit unstable right now. Okay. Now, how do you do the testing with? How do you work with this? For example, Firefox driver. You create the object of Firefox driver. Firefox driver equals to new Firefox driver. So this is the inbuilt class. This is lying somewhere in the jar files out here. Okay. All you need to do is that you need to move your mouse over the Firefox driver thing and just select the import option. Okay, it will be imported. Now, if I run this program, we had seen yesterday, this opens a blank Firefox window. You see that a blank Firefox window is getting open. Now, similarly, if you write driver.get, okay, driver.get, and you give the URL http say gmail.com. So get is the inbuilt function inside the Firefox driver which will navigate you to any website. Okay, the mentioning of protocol is very important. Please do not forget that please do not forget to add the protocol. If I just write gmail.com, it will throw me an error. Okay, so the get function driver.get will take you to Gmail. This is similar to the function which I had called over here, c3.printName. Print city name was a function in the city class, and the city class object was calling it. Similarly, the get function is from the Firefox driver and it's being called by the Firefox driver. Okay, suppose this is driver 1. If I write Firefox driver 2 equals to new Firefox driver, if I create the objects of two Firefox browsers, then I will open two Firefox windows and I can write driver2.get http yahoo.com. Okay, so if you run this, one will go to Gmail. There will be two Firefox windows opening. One will go to Gmail, the other one will go to Yahoo. So this is the first one, and here's the second one. So there are two windows. This is on Gmail. On gmail.com it opened up, and the other one it got opened up on Yahoo, right? So that's how it works. Fine. So two Firefox driver objects, two different websites I am able to open. Similarly, with IE driver and Chrome driver you can work. I'll be talking about IE and Chrome driver later on, because you cannot just simply create the objects and work with them. There are some predefined exe files which you have to include in the system path, and I'll talk about those exe files. Right. So, for example, if I take, okay, let's start with Chrome driver. If I create the object of the Chrome driver, no? It's an inbuilt driver. Right. Okay, and let me comment this part. Star slash star and star slash will make all the lines inactive. Okay, all the lines between these two commands, they'll become inactive. That those lines will not be executed. Okay. Now, if you import the Chrome driver and right, and please increase the volume. Just a minute. 1 minute. I'll just check my volume. So this is a Chrome driver. Driver 3 equals to new Chrome driver, and you go to driver3.get http, you write google.com. Okay, so if you run this code, I get the error. The path to driver executable must be set by the webdriver.chrome.driver system property. Okay, so working on working on Chrome driver is not a straight thing. Okay, this is the system property which you have to set. In most of the machines you will get this error. Okay, to get rid of this error, just a minute. Maybe I'll take this up today or tomorrow, because this system is different and I had kept a URL that's not there on the system. Just a minute. So you just type WebDriver Chrome driver.exe. Yeah, this is the thing. So just a minute. Just a minute. Okay, I got it. You just try WebDriver Chrome driver.exe in Google. Fine. Go to this link, second one, code.google.com. Chrome driver wiki, get started. Okay, it will open up this page. Fine. Go to the downloads section. Okay, out here. Now these are various exe files for Windows as well as Mac based machines, which are in form of zip files over here. Okay, you can download them. Mine is a Windows based operating system, so I'll download this zip file. Hold on. The question being asked is the functionality for all operating systems same as I'm using 7 and most of the companies? Yes, it is same. It's not much of a difference. Okay, so you click on show on folder, and this is Chrome driver zip file which I downloaded. If you right click, you select extract here, you'll get this exe file. Okay, this is not an it's an exe, but don't double click on it. Don't try to execute it. Fine. Just take this exe file. Many people think that WebDriver never works on Chrome. It works. Only thing is you have to have this exe file with you. Okay. So this is the Chrome driver executable file for WebDriver. Okay. there are two things. First of all, make sure Chrome is installed on your system. Secondly, don't execute this file. All you need is the path to this file. It's in my PC, it's in C drive 10. So what I'll do is I'll write over here. You have to set a system property. In the very beginning, I'll write system.set property. In my system is an inbuilt class in Java. System.set property. You write the property, this one, webdriver.chrome.driver, which came in the error. The error told me that the path to the driver executable, I just downloaded the driver executable, must be set by the webdriver.chrome.driver system property. Okay, so that's what I am doing right now. I am writing system.set property, this path, and along with it, comma, the path of the exe file. Okay, the exe file is Chrome driver .exe. Don't give the path to your Chrome browser exe. Sometimes people give the path of your Chrome exe file. The Chrome exe which is on your system is different. This Chrome driver.exe is specifically for WebDriver. You have to set the path. Now, if I run this code, look, I'll go to google.com successfully. Right? So Chrome is also working. Fine. So Chrome works this way, and if you look at the output, these are the Chrome logs. This is not the error. These are the log files. That is, Chrome driver was running on this port number. This is the version of Chrome. The running logs are there in this file. Chrome driver always generates a log file. Okay, that log file is known as Chrome driver.log. It's present at this location. If I go to this location, then Chrome driver.log file is present out here. If you open it, it will have all the information of what you did. This is quite complicated right now. Don't just try to go inside it. But if you look at it on a very superficial way, it's out here. It's telling you that it navigated to google.com and all everything. Okay, so that's how Chrome driver works. Similarly, there is a iDriver.exe as well, which you have to set with the property webdriver.i.driver. Okay, for working with Internet Explorer. For Firefox, it's just straight away. Fine. For Safari, I have worked with WebDriver in Safari. It's not so stable right now, but I think they have introduced it. It will be very stable in few days. You need to be registered with Apple as a developer. It's free to register in order to work with Safari using Selenium. Fine. So now this is how you create the objects of the inbuilt classes of Selenium, and this is how you actually use the existing features in them. For example, driver.get and all. Okay. Now, after going to a website, if I have to click on a link, if I have to write in an edit box, I have to click on a button, I have to read a text. So how do we do that? Fine. How do we do that with Selenium? I'll talk about that. First of all, let me talk about another concept in Java. Okay, I'll go back where I had left it. In my city class, I had created 3 variables: string name, string country, and int population. And I had this function called print city name. Fine. Now, there are 2 types of things in a class. This is a class. There are 2 types of things. One are static, one are non-static. Everything till now we have studied is non-static. Okay. If you look in your test class, then this function, the main function, is having the word static in it. Now, what is static? in my city.java, I can create another function called public static void print, say hello. Now what is the difference between these two functions? This function is not having static, so this type of function is known as non-static function. Technically this is known as non-static function, and this function is known as static function. What is the difference between a non-static and a static function? When do we use non-static? When do we use static? Now this thing has got a lot of confusion with many people. Okay, non-static is something which is the property of the object. Out here I had created the objects of the city class C3, C4 and C5. Just a minute. Out here you had the objects C3, C4 and C5, right? And in every object I had a variable like the name of the city, the population of the city and the country. Along with that there was a static function called print name. This was there in all the objects. Fine. Now there can be a property which is common for all the objects. Okay, there for example a property which is common for all the cities, right? For example, to elect their leader. I am just taking a hypothetical example. So I can make a function in city class called public void elect minister. Now this kind of function is common for all the cities. If I make it non-static, then elect minister function will have a separate copy inside each and every object. For example, the print city name. This function is non-static, it's there in every object. Whichever object calls the print city name function, the name of that object is printed. But the elect minister is a function which is common for all the objects. So what we do is we make this function static. We will make this function static. So when you make this function static, what happens is that it comes out of the objects and it resides at a common memory location, which can be accessed by all the objects. So static is not the part of the object, and non-static things are the part of the object. It will get more clear to you in some time. Just hold on. What I am going to do is I am making this function static. So when I make elect minister static, it no longer remains the part of the object. Fine. So in my test class, I can directly call it. There is no need. How was I calling the non-static functions? I was calling like c3.print name, c4.print name, but static can be directly called. I can write city.elect minister. I cannot write city.print name. The non-static functions have to be called with the object. This is a non-static function. It has to be called with an object. The static things can be called directly with the class name dot the static stuff. Okay. This is what we were actually doing here. In my sample Selenium test.java, I had written system.setProperty. Now what is system? System is an inbuilt class. Whosoever made Java, he made this inbuilt class. Inside that class, there is a static method called setProperty, which I can directly call without creating the object of that class. But the get function out here from Chrome driver is a non-static function. When I have to call it, I have to call it with after creating the object of the Chrome driver class. So in Crux, right, if you don't want to get into very depth, if you just want to learn it for just the sake of learning Selenium, just remember non-static things have to be accessed by creating the objects of the class. Static things can be accessed just by writing the name of the class dot the static stuff. Okay, for example, out here I never had to create the object of the system class to access or to set the system property. So this is how you use it. Fine. Okay, so Chrome driver equals to new Chrome driver system.set properties. This is static and non-static. Static is with the class name dot the variable name. Non-static is with the object. Fine. Now, if anybody has got any questions, please feel free to ask me. Okay, don't get confused at this early stage. These are the very basics. Fine. Now, yeah, tell me. Your voice is breaking and it's very low. Your voice is very low and it is okay. So the question being asked is that you have to understand non-static and static again in a little bit elaborate way. Fine. So I'll create a new class called for example, a very simple class book. Fine. A very simple class book with the properties string publisher, string author. Okay, two simple things. Fine. Yeah, the question being asked is, if I have a script in RC and now I want to run in WebDriver, will it work? Well, they have made a class called WebDriver backed Selenium, which actually is a bridge between RC and WebDriver. If you want to make your code on RC work in WebDriver, fine. In that case, you can use that class. I have not used it. I don't know how far it's successful. Okay, but I have seen some people are telling me that they are facing issues with that. But better keep your RC code different, WebDriver code different. Both the tools are completely different from each other. They have got no similarity or anything. Okay, I think somebody has switched on his camera, so please switch it off. Right. So, okay. Now, simple class book. Now, what are these? These are known as non-static fields. Okay. Again, I'll actually make a function called public void cell. Okay, and I will write system.out.println selling plus the author of that book, suppose. Okay. Now I'll make a new class called test book. Fine. And inside this you'll write book B equals to new book, and if you write B dot author like this, B dot publisher A1 say P1. Fine. and similarly I create another object B1 of the book class with author A2 and publisher B2. So what will happen? There will be two objects in the memory like this. Both the objects will have author and publisher in it, and both the objects will have the function sellBooks because sellBooks is non-static. Fine. So if I write B dot sellBooks, it will try to sell this object. Fine. I'll just explain you. If I write B dot sell and B1 dot sell, so when the sell function is called by B, it will print the author of B, and when it's called by B1, it will print the author of B1. Fine. So if you run this, if you look at the output, fine. Now, suppose there is a function called public void, a function, a feature which is say common for all the books. Okay, say I think a function like open. Right. Just taking a hypothetical example. Okay, so I'll make this. Actually, this should not be static, but still, I'll make this static. So what this does is, this function open, if I make it static, it will no longer be the part of the objects. It will reside somewhere out here and will be common for all the objects. So I can call this function simply by writing book.open. Simple. You can call static with the class name dot the function, the static function name. But the non-static variables like author, publisher, sell, these are non-static things. They have to be accessed with the help of objects only. Okay, so this is the difference between static and non-static. While working with Selenium, you will be working with static classes as well as non-static classes. So I'll teach you over there, and this concept will be more clear at that time. Fine. So static is the part of, is not the part of the object, and non-static is the part of the object. I cannot write over here book.sell. We cannot do this. This is illegal, because sell is a non-static function and it can only be called by creating the object. But open is a static function. You can directly call it by class name dot the static thing. Okay. Right.